Look, it's been a rough couple weeks for Gator Dan down there in Gainesville, and the Georgia-Florida game coming up here in a few weeks. It was very interesting to see Paul Feinbaum's comments about Dan Mullen and the Dogs through the week here, because Paul Feinbaum, say what you will, he certainly doesn't hold back, and he was very clear at the beginning of the season about Georgia Clemson, and he's getting pretty clear with Georgia and the Gators too. He said earlier this week, Georgia is indisputably the best team in the country, which I think is probably true. It doesn't mean they're going to win all their games. Doesn't mean that they would be favored against Alabama, although they probably would be. And then this comment, we know Dan Mullen hasn't recruited at the level of Kirby Smart. This is an off week for both the Dogs and the Gators. And something I forgot about before this weekend, and I was reminded by a Florida person actually, Dan Mullen cannot go out recruiting right now because of NCAA violations. Like, that is not a good position to be in if you are Dan Mullen, and you value your future at Florida. If you're hey, I'm going to X and O this thing to victory. I don't need kids. Well, then that's a different situation. But I think right now we are at coming close to a tipping point for Dan Mullen at Florida. And when you look at his time, let me just say this: that Florida job is not an easy job on a couple of different levels. Now, Georgia's not necessarily an easy job either. But there's a few things going on at Florida that are not the case in Athens. Number one, and this hasn't really affected Florida yet, but you got Miami and Florida State in state, and they have been really bad lately. But they're always right around the corner, and every kid they get, it's a zero-sum game, and it adds up. And then you also have everybody else coming into the state. So it's not, it's not an easy job. We've only really seen two people win there at a majorly high level. I think in the last 40 years at Georgia, you've only seen three people win at a high level at Georgia. So it is all about who the head coach is. Secondly, he has sputtered at Florida. There's only been one, what I would call, the problem for Dan Mullen is, which of your seasons are you going to say is your best time at Florida? Is it the season we just had, the pandemic season, where they had 4 losses? Or is it the 19 season, which I would say probably was. It was the 19 season when you lost to Georgia by a touchdown, and you're 11-2 and you win the Orange Bowl against not a very good Virginia team, but a Virginia team, and your 2 losses were to top 10 teams in LSU and Georgia. You only played one other ranked team, which was Auburn, which you won at home, but it was, what's happening down there, you can feel it. Like, there's a fair amount of grumbling already. In 2018, I think Florida fans thought, okay, this guy, let's just see what he's got. And then they had this strange loss at the end of the year to Missouri, and nobody really thought about it. It was at home. That to me was a bit of a red flag, but it was his first season. They go 10-3 and then win the Peach Bowl against Michigan. A season later, they, in 18, Georgia beat them by about 20 or whatever it was. And in 19, Georgia had to fight their way to the win in that game, but they did, and they sent Florida to the Orange, and that Florida team wound up being a top 10 team to end the season, and just like the 18 team was a top 10 team. But man, these last couple of 19 games at 8-4, yeah, somewhere around 19 games, it has not been great. It's been 12-7. That is not what you want. Right now, they are 2-3 in the league. There is, I don't know if you'd want to call it confusion at quarterback, but there is some not having a lot of fun at quarterback. When I was on the call this past week, the Florida media were after him. Why aren't you doing this? Or what's your explanation for this? And so then people start, attacking Dan Mullen for what happened at Mississippi State. They were 5th in the West more often than not. in his time there. And you'd say, well, it's Mississippi State. That's right. But if you're Florida and, you get one win over Georgia in a 4-year period, that's not going to work. And we don't know what's going to happen in this game, but it's not looking great. And, Georgia has, and really back to Paul's point, there's been a lot of hand-wringing down there. There's been a lot of fun making of Kirby Smart, and he can't coach, which is, I don't even know what that means after a while. I think people just say that, and they don't even know what they're saying. If you want to have a conversation about, can someone coach or not, you can have that conversation about every single coach that exists. But Georgia's going to come into this game as nearly as big a favorite as they were in 2017, and I don't think this is going to happen. But Florida can't lose this game 42-7. This game can't be a 30-point blowout. That people down there would lose their skulls over this. And Dan Mullen wouldn't be getting close to being fired, but it would push him as close to possible in this offseason. So all of that said, the criticism is the guy doesn't recruit well. And I think that's not an abnormal thing to say because he is such a strange duck. I think he's a good coach. I think he's one of the best offensive play callers in college football. I think he's one of the best game day coaches in college football. I think he doesn't run programs as well as guys like Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley, etc. And I wouldn't even put Lincoln in the category with Nick and Kirby right now. So you can I wouldn't say roll the dice. You can make your strategy be that I can outcoach anybody. But that's not gonna, if someone else has better players, they're gonna beat you more often than not. Probably 80% of the time. Something like that. 70, 80% of the time. Losing 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 games, that's what gets coaches fired. It's what got Ray Goff fired, Jim Donnan. They weren't winning. Put Mark Richt on the hot seat more than anybody, more than any other team in his time at Georgia. You have to run a full program, and that's what Paul's getting at. We know Dan Mullen hasn't recruited at the level of Kirby. Well, if Kirby wins this game, that would be 3 out of 4 against Dan Mullen at Florida and 4 out of 5 overall. That would be pretty decisive as to who the better coach is, right? Are we still going to play this game about overachieving at state? Are we, it's what it is. You're at Florida. Dan Mullen's got to win this game. And Kirby Smart does not. This is not a must-win game for Georgia, amazingly. But these two teams are not in the same space right now. Georgia's buttoned up. They don't make the mistakes the Gators do. Florida is up and down. Georgia's not up and down. They're steady. They are what they are, and they're what they are all the time. But these little jabs here from people like Paul Feinbaum, etc., it's not just Paul. That's going to add up. And the natives are 100% restless down there in Gainesville right now. I can tell you that for sure. Now, does it mean that he's going to be there next year? I think he will, unless he leaves. They are not going to. Him getting fired would take a full-blown meltdown, the likes of which I can't see happening. I don't think they're going to lose to whoever they don't have much left on their schedule after this Georgia game. They got Florida State, and I think they might play South Carolina. There's not a lot of great games left on this schedule, but there's not a lot of upside. They play Georgia at Carolina, Samford at Missouri. Missouri is bad. And then Florida State, who a lot of people would argue is pretty bad too. There's just not a lot of games to get you where you got to go. I don't know. I think you're seeing the seat. They're not. Ben Hill Griffith is not getting sold out. It's just not. It's not what it used to be down there. And I understand some of the games they're not selling out or not ideal games, but there's a restlessness in Gainesville right now. And I don't think there's enough restlessness that you fire the head coach that you just gave an extension to 9 months ago, like a crazy person. But, I think, to me, there's a decent % chance that Dan Mullen's not at Florida next year because he leaves to go to the NFL. But in order to go to the NFL, you need to have some success. And that did not work out last year, the flirting with the Jets and all this stuff. I think you are going to see some changes in Gainesville next year. Question is, how much and in the way of changes will we see? And that's hard to know, but you can see people getting their knives out. They're ready. Does that make Florida more dangerous? Not to me. You can't have quarterback problems. I mean, Anthony Richardson's not just going to figure it out in a week, or 2 weeks. And he's going up against one of the best defenses in the last decade/century. I mean, it's going to be tough for Florida to win this game. Let's talk about it more over on dogpost.com. We'll see you over there.